Hey, everybody. Thanks for sticking around after the D-Class show. This is the Pat and Jeff show. We're going to be talking about the moon map. Before we get to that, I want to remind everybody here, now that you are here, do me a big favor, hit that thumbs up button. Last week, we made it number 9 on the leaderboard. Thanks to you, thanks to Dave, thanks to Joe for the raids, but mostly thanks to all of you. And don't forget, go to tulipblooms.shop. The amazing ultra premium bakuchiol laden wrinkle smoothing satin balm is available with an extra 15% off. And of course, if you use one of the promo codes that you're so familiar with, it's an extra 10% off. And that supports the creators that you love. I'm going to be jumping in with a few annotations in the middle of this to let you know things that may be unclear from what I'm seeing. So I hope you enjoy this first foray into trying to understand what very well may be the only true, reliable map of our realm. Enjoy, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Pat and Jeff Show. I'm your host, Patrick Gunnels, joining you from Houston, Texas. And right now it is August 9th, 2025, with my co-host, the brilliant Dr. S, also known as Jeff. Jeff, how are you?
Hey, I'm well, Patrick. Doing great. And I'm very excited to talk about this lunar map, the moon map. This is cool stuff.
We've been, as a community, as a world, as a civilization, over the past few years, getting hungrier and hungrier for an explanation for the nature of our world. Now, what we're going to talk about today is kind of woo-woo, just like a lot of the stuff we talk about. I love this one because it involves direct observation of things that regular people can verify for themselves. I am going to go with the proposition that the bad guys aren't able to fake the moon. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe the moon is fake too. But every night we go out there, we're able to see the exact same face of the moon. Always. It is unchanging, immortal, mysterious. And we've been taught that the moon is a giant rock floating in a vacuum a 250,000 miles away. Whether or not you believe that to be the case, dear audience, the face of the moon is unchanging. The visible face of the moon, when it's full, is the exact same always. The moon has features that seem to correspond to the land masses that we have been taught exist. It is also very important to note that maps are projections of what we think is reality. This is from a YouTube channel called better known as WrongThink. It's a small YouTube channel. Important to note, latitudes, longitudes, and cartography, okay? All maps are scale models of reality. Latitude and longitude are points on an Earth map projection that help you find a specific location. The scale of a map is the ratio used to correct the distance on the map projection to the corresponding distance in the real world. Now remember, the classic reification fallacy of the world is the map is not the terrain. But look at all these ways that things can be projected. Depending upon how you make latitude and longitude fit, you can move things into all sorts of different configurations.
Yeah, I think longitude and latitude was a construct that's been created to explain the narrative. And it's not unusual what we see in other environments. However, it's logical and it makes sense, which helps sells it, but it also tells the story.
Yep. Look at all of these different possibilities. Now, we're familiar with a lot of these projections, and some of these projections we are not familiar with. But we have so many different map projections of our world, and each one of them is only changed because of stretching and bending. No breaking is taking place. So I come from a mathematics background. I had a particular concentration in an area of mathematics called topology, the study of spaces, objects that are invariant under continuous transformation. And all that that means is you can take an object, you can stretch it, you can smoosh it, you can fold it, you can twirl it. What you're not allowed to do is cut it. You're not allowed to poke holes in it. That breaks the rules. So you can have something with the same basic topology that looks completely different because it's been simply distorted. And every single one of them, from this, we can at least agree, I think, that these are recognizable. Now, we still recognize the landmasses even this way. There's Africa. We recognize it. There's Australia. Do you recognize it over here? Maybe, maybe not. There's South America. There's Africa. All of these things are in their topological transformations, otherwise known as simple distortions. You're allowed to squeeze, you're allowed to stretch, but you're not allowed to cut or poke holes in it. Like this feature right here, this little body of water, that has to stay there. You're not allowed to take it away. But you could do this to it. You can make it skinny. You can make it long. You can make it wide. You can make it fat. And all of these changes can be facilitated simply by using a changed coordinate system. And what you're looking at right here is referred to as cylindrical or rectangular coordinates. It's what you might refer to as the XY measuring system. Now, there is another kind of coordinate system that we learn in math known as the polar coordinate system. Now, what is the polar coordinate system? Look on the right, you see these two systems right here have different types of ordered pairs. In a rectangular coordinate system, you have pairs of X and Y, vertical and horizontal distances. You get your X distance, you get your Y distance, you get a rectangular coordinate point on a flat plane. In the case of a polar coordinate system, the ordered pairs are radius from origin and theta, which is angle of incidence with, I don't know, some arbitrary meridian. Any questions about the way I'm describing these concepts?
No, I think it makes sense. But can you also, would you say that the polar coordinates or the map on the right, the system on the right, can it be described almost as like if you were looking at a terrarium where it has a top and there's a bottom? So the bottom is circular and wider than the top. So it's almost like a small circle at the top and a wider circle at the bottom.
Okay.
Does that make sense or not?
I think I understand exactly what you're asking. So in the case of rectangular coordinates, that's on the left, you have vertical lines and you have horizontal lines. The horizontal lines are latitudes. They tell you north and south. The vertical lines are called longitudes, and they tell you east and west. So if you want to know where you are on that map, you have an X, you have a Y, you're done. You have an exactly pinpointed location. In the case of the map on the right, you have longitudes, which are straight lines that go from the outside of the circle, all converging in the center. And that tells you your east and west. And your latitudes, I hope I said longitudes for the first one. Your latitudes are concentric circles starting at the very center of the circle. And that tells you north and south. Perfectly north is the center of the circle. It is not a circle itself. It is a single point. And then every step you take away from that center, whether it be 1 foot, 1 mile, or 1,000 miles, it is a different latitude. And that latitude is represented by a circle of radius, distance that you have traveled from the North Pole or the center of the circle. Does that help?
It does. It
Okay,
does.
good.
Sure.
Excellent. All right, everybody. I'm jumping in for a second because I think I went a little bit too detailed on the whole topology thing. What I was trying to explain is that maps look different depending on the projection you use. And sometimes they can look so different that they are unrecognizable upon first glance. It's a very simple concept, and I don't think I explained it very well. And that is why it's so important to note, hey, that landmass that you're calling Russia isn't shaped like the Russia that I know. That's not so important. What matters is that map the real one? And is it plausible given the borders among the nations that we know? Just wanted to make sure that was clear. All right, back to our regularly scheduled programming. So when we actually get deep into of what we're going to call the moon map, we have every single known land represented perfectly, beautifully, intuitively, once you change the colors to match our expectations of what maps look like. But that's only a portion of the surface of the moon. It also has massive areas of land that we are unfamiliar with. And based upon this, I have literally changed my worldview on this. What about you, Jeff? I know you looked into it a little bit.
Well, a couple of things. First, I want to go back to one of your original comments where the naysayers say it's a distorted map of the world we know. But what about the explanation of it being any kind of map? Like, let's just agree that it's distorted, which I don't agree it is. It just depends how you look at it. Tell me why it still makes sense that it looks like the Earth we know. I mean, explain that. And nobody can explain it. So the only thing you can say is it looks a little distorted. I mean, how about why is it there? How come we've never noticed this until just recently? I mean, that's the bizarre thing. Why didn't anybody tell us this when we were in grade school or we were in high school or even college and trying to understand what this could represent? So that's the first comment. The second comment is, yes, I agree that this shows a map of the realm that we know of and the lands beyond. And we hear this all the time, but I'm so into this kind of stuff. It is so cool. And it shows us that there's more to the Earth than we know. So let's get into it. And I think we can show everyone what we mean.
Because what you're seeing there is genuinely a shot-for-shot map of all of the lands we know of, plus a couple of extra ones that very well may be there, and they could be under the water, or they could be there and we're just not allowed to travel there. But as you go further and further down this little list, it starts showing you, okay, so there's Europe, Asia, there's North America, there's South America, Oceania, aka Australia. And they call this one Atlantis, but that's, without proof. That one they call Lemuria, which is between Australia, and then there's India, Asia, all that. And then there's South America right there. And let's see. And then the North Pole they refer to as Hyperborea. And then they refer to this giant continent as Pangaea. And then there's your North Atlantic Ocean, etc. And I'm going to start by throwing out what I think might be going on in the world. Every 4 years that a politician visits Antarctica? Have you heard that?
Yes.
After the election of 2016, I guess John Kerry visited Antarctica, or 2004 or something like that.
Yep.
What if that instead of Antarctica being a giant ice island on the bottom of a ball, or being a 360-degree ice wall, because, by the way, for those of you who don't know, we flat earthers tentatively have accepted what we call the Gleason map, which has the inhabited lands of the world, and then it's surrounded by a giant ice wall, 360 degrees, and that's our Antarctica. What if it's neither of those things? And what if Antarctica is actually these lands here that I'm pointing to, the lands that no one can go to, that if you try to cross over to them, the military stops you every time. And we're not allowed to go there. And we're not allowed to go there not because of woo-woo reasons. We're not allowed to go there because they don't like illegal immigrants over there. What if it's just a different civilization with a different people who maybe they're more advanced than we are? Maybe they're a lot more advanced than we are. And we have diplomacy with them in an extremely secret way through our leaders/owners. And one of the rules of our diplomatic relations with those civilizations is don't let your filthy peasants come here. You people are gross. I think that's what's going on right now, and that this enormous schism in our information, in our institutions, in our understanding of reality itself, may be an awakening designed to prepare us for open, public, diplomatic relations with these other civilizations. That's what I got right now.
Well, think about this. Why is it that, you have nations of the world, however many, I don't know, 160, 200.
100. I counted 196 last time.
Fair enough. But all the nations of the world cannot possibly agree on anything. Different languages, different ways of life, different food, all this craziness, even different time zones. Yet that the one thing that they all agree is to sign this treaty that nobody can go beyond that parallel, whatever the 60th degree parallel, whatever the heck it is. Like, how did that happen and why did that happen? I mean,
yeah. So this audience has got to be familiar with the Antarctic Treaty. And you ask, of course, such an important question. And the fact that it has only been in the Great Awakening that we've been asking this question in large numbers shocks me to this day. And I'm not claiming that I'm superior in any way. I didn't know about the Antarctic Treaty until 2019. And I'm sure some of you probably knew it even later than that. But it is the simple agreement made by all the nations of the world that peasants aren't allowed to go there, to Antarctica. What? And they've never violated it. Perfect cooperation on it. No flying over Antarctica. Now, these are all just flat Earth arguments in a lot of ways. But what if flat Earth is a distraction? And that whether the Earth is flat or a ball, while important, is less important than the fact that enormous civilizations have been completely obscured in every way. So as far as a little bit of history for the Antarctic Treaty, 12 nations were brought together in enormous, quote unquote, science cooperation in the 1957 timeframe. The treaty was signed in 1959. So it was signed in Washington on December 1st, 1959, by those 12 nations, the big boys. And it works pretty simple. Anywhere south of 60 degrees south latitude, you're not allowed to go. Antarctica is for peaceful purposes, freedom of scientific investigation, open exchange. 58 parties, the 29 consultative parties, they do substantial research, etc. And they're not allowed to let people go unless they're part of the special club. The mining ban does not expire after 50 years, aka from 2048. Any consultative party may call a review conference, but changing the protocol requires high thresholds and agreement. All right, that's the Antarctic Treaty in a nutshell, and it has never been disputed, and they all agree on it. How in the hell is that even possible?
Doesn't make any sense, and it's because it's not real. It doesn't make any sense. The controllers created those agreements to keep us away from there because, as you said, they don't want us there. They won't allow us there. And how many times have we seen it in, pop culture, whatever, Game of Thrones? Remember the ice wall? I mean, it was in front of us in so many different shows and stuff. Again, the news is fake, but the TV shows and the movies, they're all real. They tell us the true stories of what's around us.
You ever heard of Lemuria?
I have heard of Lemuria, and it's also known as the land of Mu as well, M-U. And many believe that there's a reason why flights take so long going from certain destinations on Earth, because you can't fly over it, you have to fly around it. And because I think some of this land is actually visible, but they don't want us to see it. Some of it is under the water still. But yeah, I've heard of Lemuria, and it's quite interesting to me.
It was hypothesized and named Lemuria as a way of explaining the commonality of lemur bones and where they were discovered. Lemuria is a continent, if you're to go with what the moon map says. So I'm just going to scroll over to when it goes to Lemuria, hold for processing. I mean, this is a pretty kick-ass map. It's getting it all. And where is Lemuria? This is why God invented editing. Gonna get all this nonsense out of here. Oh, we're getting close. All right. So there's your America. Oh, this is so freaking cool. You got your South America, you got your North America here, but then when you start moving over, there's your Greenland. There's Hyperborea, which some say is the location of the Garden of Eden. Going across Europe, Australia. All right, that's got to be. Now we're starting to get into the darker lands and the stuff that's, man, I just want to get to Lemuria. All right, I have a better idea. Why don't I just do a YouTube search for Lemuria? Because, couldn't bear to not do research on YouTube. But I'm having trouble finding stuff, accounts of Lemuria. Let's see here. And then when you do searches on YouTube, it doesn't pop up. The full story of Lemuria. All right, here we go. How to travel to Lemuria, Forbidden Continent. All right, freaking awesome. All right, there's this guy. There's this freaking guy who is called Divergent. So the Divergent YouTube channel is fantastic. I recommend it enormously. And this is how to travel to Lemuria. And here we go. You go right here. So you see, notice on the map, and I'll blow it up. You got, and this is the guy. So check him out. Subscribe to his channel. His channel is just called Divergent on YouTube. So here are the known lands of Asia and the known lands of Europe. And then if you go way over to the far east in Russia, the distance between the tip of that little peninsula and the continent of Lemuria is relatively small. Now, one of the other things that I think is possible is if you travel between these two lands, even on a plane, it is conceivable that you could thread the needle, travel close enough to Russia so that you would not even be able to see the land of Lemuria. Also, I think that commercial air travel is largely automated now. So it's not like the pilots all have to have a directive that says, hey, you have to avoid seeing these forbidden continents. That's my understanding of the way that commercial jets fly now. But there it is, Lemuria. And then it's right next to New Zealand. And there's another one, another peninsula that juts out. But you'll notice, of course, that this continent is absolutely huge. I don't know what's there, but there are stories about Lemuria. Of Lemuria being filled with an advanced, very spiritual civilization. And it's fascinating stuff. What have you heard?
Well, the story I've heard is that the Lemuria was like as you said, a very advanced culture, as was Atlantis, and that there were these wars, and Atlanteans were getting aggressive and doing sort of the things that some of our truthers are saying what's going on today in these underground bases, where they're doing these experiments and trying to regrow humans and other beings and mixing them in species studies. Anyway, long story short was that there was a big war between Lemuria and Atlantis. And that kind of had some altering effects on the world we know today. So that's what I know about it. I also know that's what makes, and I don't know how close it actually is to Hawaii, but it makes Hawaii so special is because of its relationship and its proximity to Lemuria. And what this is all about, I'm not really sure beyond that, but that's my understanding.
Okay, so that is a great question. The distance between Lemuria And New Zealand is essentially nothing, but I don't know where it would go. And I don't know where everything is now because of the fact that I am so indoctrinated in the Gleason map now. But let's pull up the Gleason map just for grins. And so if I pull up Gleason map, and I'll get I want to get a nice big one.
By the way, this is really funny that we're talking about this today because just last night was a full moon, or the night before. I mean, the moon is huge and bright as hell. I mean, it was so bright here in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, you couldn't even look at it. It was almost like as bright as the sun.
Okay, that's freaky, dude.
Yeah.
All right, so here's our azimuthal equidistant map. This is Africa. That's Madagascar right there. I hope you guys can see where I'm pointing. There should be a little magnifying glass. There's Russia, China, Mongolia, India. This is the United States of America. So I think that Hawaii is supposed to be somewhere in the Pacific out here. And Lemuria is supposed to... Oh, dude, you're right. Yeah. Lemuria is supposed to be right here. Okay. Damn, I wish I could freeze this. Okay, so Lemuria is supposed to be right here, dude. which means freaking Hawaii is nearby. Yeah, your sense of geography is way better than mine.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why it takes so long to fly there, and they take us certain ways. But I've heard this many times from a lot of truthers and a lot of the research I've done in the last 4 years about how special Hawaii is. And it might even speak to what they've done in Lahaina and why Lahaina was brought to our attention because of what's going on there. And also what's important is also how Hawaii became a state. I mean, they didn't come willingly. We basically stole Hawaii. And the question is, why did we steal it? Why was it important for the United States to have it? And there are other reasons. And I think it's because it's a gateway to Lemuria, I think, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's my guess.
I think that there's a damn fine chance that Donald Trump wants Greenland for a reason directly related to this. So let's try this. Let's try Greenland and moon map. Because Greenland is right next to what is called Hyperborea. And let's see if I can find it. Well, let's do Hyperborea instead. Yeah.
Well, while you're looking for the Greenland concept, why does Trump want Greenland? Well, some of the guesses or thoughts about that is that it's one of the closest possessions of land closest to the United States that gets us to the ice wall, to the edges of the ice wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
No. You have the right idea, but it is the closest part to the United States that gets us to Hyperborea. So remember how we talked about the polar coordinate system? The center of that map is the North Pole. The outside of it is the quote unquote ice wall. I would recharacterize it as the outer part being the boundary of our known world. And some of it is almost certainly an ice wall, but a big ass block of ice that once you get past it, you get to other lands. And then some areas that are just normal water that you're not allowed to go past. I would think that they get colder and colder the further out you go because you're further and further from the path of the sun. But the most important thing to note here is Hyperborea and its Hyperborea is the North Pole. So I buried that lead. And Greenland. Okay, so there's Russia. This is Europe. I wish I had the actual scale thing for this because I want to get to USA part. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter because I could just pull up a map of Greenland, which is right next to the North Pole. So in the center, you have the North Pole. And then going out, you get to what we would have called at the very edge of the Earth at 90 degrees of south latitude. So negative 90, right? You get to the South Pole, which there's an infinite number of South Poles because it's a giant circle encapsulating the Earth. But Hyperborea is completely forbidden to us. The North Pole is forbidden. The actual historical description of the North Pole is 4 rivers with 4 islands, all converging to a central point, which is the magnetic north, which some refer to as the Black Rock, which is a giant magnetic mountain, which accounts for why our compasses work the way they do. I mean, when you talk about woo, this is woo, but I believe that about Hyperborea. And from a strategic standpoint, that location is militarily more powerful than anywhere else because it gives you striking ability everywhere in the world all at once. So wanting Greenland and wanting to Americanize it and make it military or whatever it is would definitely freak the rest of the world out. And the fact that he wanted to do that means, in my opinion, he has knowledge of the true nature of the world because of how important Greenland would be. Okay. Thoughts?
Well, that does make sense. And that's consistent with what I believe to be true and what I've heard. I think, again, this concept of what's beyond, though, that ice wall, or the ice walls, is even more interesting to me because, Trump is walking around the world right now. And what I believe is that he's basically the ambassador of the world. He's not just the president of the United States. So I believe the strategic advantage of getting to Hyperborea or owning Hyperborea is beyond defense. I think it's entrance and access is what I think to something we just don't know enough about.
This is what lots and lots of very old maps described as being Hyperborea. So check that out. 4 islands. And then 4 rivers coming out of those, dividing up those 4 islands. At the center, also known as the Polus Arcticus, also known as the North Pole, is the Black Rock. I forget I think there was a Latin or Portuguese name for it, but it just means Black Rock. And we don't have any detail in public maps about the North Pole. Have you ever tried going to Google Earth and finding the North Pole? It's freaking trippy, man. I can do it right now.
Have you heard this, Patrick? I mean, again, talking about woo, there are a lot of people believe that the North Pole, there's a reason why the waters flow to the center, is because they're actually then taken into the Earth, and the waters circulate in inner Earth, and then come out at the South Pole and come around, and that's how the water flows. So that, in essence, it's not flat Earth, it's not round Earth, but it's a toroidal field. And if you look at a toroidal field, it almost makes sense because there's a center post, in essence, that everything comes out of. And then there's a flow on the one side and a flow on the other. So I'm just wondering if those claims are potentially true, and that's why they keep us from going there. But why do those 4 rivers come to the center in Hyperborea? I mean, there has to be a reason for that.
Yeah, I agree.
It could very well be, but an interesting thought.
Here's Google Earth. And it's kind of beautiful. Not going to lie. It's just all the bullshit clouds that they just put there for fun to make us think they're using satellites in space to do this. There's Greenland, covered in white. I have to be very careful with this map because honestly, it's really taxing my graphics card, and my graphics card is pretty badass. So I don't know why this is so glitchy, but look at this. What they portray where the North Pole would be is nothing but water. No land there. No black rock. Nothing.
Why is it darker water? Do you know?
I think that would be because they say it's deeper. But the short answer is I don't know. And Greenland itself, look how featureless they make it. Let's zoom in on the vaunted Greenland. And I think if I keep zooming in on it, all that's going to happen is I'm going to be blinded by white. Really? No pictures. No, nothing.
They're hiding something there. Something's going on there we don't know about.
Yeah, maybe if I try to go check out a place called Asiaf. It's what we call a live dig, y'all. Remember, Greenland only has like 60,000 people, according to what we're told. And they got all these Eskimo names. Hey, look, they're giving us features of this. Not many, but there's something going. Wow. It's just nothing. And aren't they supposed to be taking pictures of all sorts of stuff? Not Greenland. I think Greenland is where NASA does a lot of its photography, claiming it's other planets. So it would make sense that they wouldn't want any photographs taken of those places.
And there must be a link between Greenland, as you say, and Hyperborea, and where they don't want us to go and don't want us to know what's going on there. But there's a strange reason why Trump would want that. And there's also even more a compelling understanding of it, that he made it so brought it up into the public and made it so known. I mean, how ridiculous is it to make Greenland part of the United States? I mean, and then you start thinking about, wait a minute, it's not so ridiculous. Maybe there's other reasons that make a lot of sense for it to be part of the United States.
Oh, yeah. No question about it.
Calling attention to it, right? So that we look into it, find out, and ask these questions.
Yeah. I don't know how old the lies that we've been told are. The fact that the Antarctic Treaty is only from 1959. Think about how recent 1959 is. My mother was 9 years old. This is my generation. This is my family still alive during that time. Many members of this audience were around in 1959. And in 1959, that was the time when it was determined that all the nations of the world would get together and agree no exploration past 60 degrees south latitude, which is not even that far. We're talking like just a little past just the tip of South America, and you're not allowed to keep going. And they all agreed on this all at once. It is baffling.
Conspiracy theory, nothing more.
Nothing more than a conspiracy theory.
Indeed.
All right. So let's go. I want to go into some of the stuff that you sent me, and we'll treat it kind of epic thready. Now, I want to go real hard at the speculative nature of a lot of these claims. And I'm not going to be able to explore them all, but this is from blog.thegovernmentrag.com. This is from April 30th, 2023. And it's the claim that the moon is a plasma mirror that reflects the Earth. All right. Here are the points. Flat Earth map, hidden, plain sight, face of the moon. We got that. It's a distorted. Now, this is the part that of course, I've already pointed out the fallaciousness of. Referring to it as distorted doesn't make any sense because we don't know what reality is. Second, the claim is that plasma is a focused electromagnetic phenomenon that was also written about by Nikola Tesla, and that Arthur Eddington of the British Freemasonic Royal Scientific Society conspired to make fellow conman and fake scientist Einstein into a star who abolished the ether in plagiarized papers Freemasonic science credited to Einstein as his. But the electromagnetic phenomenon called the ether existed, and he wrote about his objections, stating that it was preposterous to abolish it. Now, the ether is another concept I consider to be unproven, but it is the idea that light propagates through a medium known as the ether because light is a wave and waves must propagate through a medium. I personally think that the assumption that light is a wave just because it produces a wave-like pattern on scatter disks is a reification fallacy, but nevertheless, that's part of it. But the claims also made are that the plasma moon and the sun are focused electromagnetic phenomena. So the energy glare called the moon materializes as a spot at the point where the focused cosmic electromagnetic energy from the black sun causes the ether to fluoresce, and the plasma moon's reflection gives a natural map of Earth. However, for electromagnetic energy to focus that way, it would seem to indicate that the plane that we exist on is a concave lens-like structure that produces the fluorescence called the moon at a focus location. Is that something you've heard as well? And how can we possibly even begin to delve into this topic?
It is what I've heard before, and in some respects, it makes sense in that it's a projection that's created by the sun, because the sun and the moon are identical size. It's not what we believe, where this moon is this puny little thing and the sun is this vast, huge thing. They're actually the same size. So if the moon is a projection of the created by the sun, it makes sense that they're the same size. And it does kind of resonate with me that it's a concept of electromagnetic phenomenon. So I kind of get that because our whole realm is electromagnetic, right? That's why we're here. That's why things happen the way they happen. That's the concept of free energy, and everything else is this electromagnetic concept that emanates from Mother Earth and the sun and the moon. And it creates basically a battery between the three of them. So I kind of get that. So it does make sense to me. How it reflects, that's the only thing I'm not really sure. The fluorescence, based on this article, the fluorescence and the fluorescent nature of ether, I can't prove that. I don't know enough about it. But when I read it, okay, fair enough. It's just as logical as anything else I've ever heard. I'm trying to understand the toroidal field. And I think if we understand the toroidal field, because I don't know much about it. I just know it exists.
Yeah.
And I think that could explain where there's areas of convexity and concavity mixed, because that's how I think you get that concept. Like in my mind, even a flat Earth is somewhat what am I thinking? Convex, right? Not concave, but convex.
I don't know. It's supposed to be flat. It's supposed to be neither. That's what flat means.
Well, I don't think it's neither. I think there is no such thing as flat Earth. I don't think there is such a thing as round Earth. I think it is this body that's toroidal.
But just for definitional sake, though, flat is by definition neither convex nor concave.
Fair enough.
But the point you're making is that what we live on is not going to be perfectly flat. It's going to have a concave. You think it's concave or convex? Because convex means up. So, convexity, it's like the outer surface of a ball. Concavity would be the inner surface of a ball.
And what I'm saying is I think it's both. I think it kind of comes up and around. So I don't think it's either. I think it's a mix. And I think that explains some of the possibilities potentially.
So you mean it's concave in some places and convex in others?
Correct.
Whew. This is definitely getting into the realm of the extremely speculative. But you want to know what's not speculative? that the moon is a reflection of our lands. I think I'm pretty much on board with it. It's just too perfect the way that the moon map pops out. And because of that, I think we have to explore far more deeply.
Yeah, and I think it's there to remind us and to educate us that our realm isn't what we think it is. Our realm is much bigger, and there's much more to it that we're about to learn in time ahead. Hopefully,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. We're going to need to do another show on this one as well, because after the audience absorbs some of this information, we're going to get a lot of feedback. The first thing, I think it's pretty much disposed of, that's a map of the Earth in big, big ways. And if it is a map of the Earth, which I believe that it is, the additional lands represented on that map need to be explained. Lemuria, Hyperborea, Atlantis, which we didn't even get into at all, and then what some are calling Terra Vista, which are just enormous land masses that we have no information on. I think it's going to be amazing. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and we'll just keep this one of the shorter shows. And then next week, I think we'll do it again. And we're going to base our we're going to do it on feedback based from, on what we get from the audience, and go from there. So anyway, Jeff, you got anything you want to plug?
No, I don't have I don't have anything to plug. I'm just here, just the average schmo, just trying to learn and figure out what's going on.
The people in this community are, if nothing remotely resembling average. I will definitely say that. Jeff, as always, thank you for being my amazing co-host. And to all of you in the audience, please hit the follow button here. You're going to want to be here for the next episode when we get into greater detail. You're also going to want to hit that thumbs up button for me, if you could, and share it with your friends and family. Now is the time when people are open to these concepts. So check it out and send it to your friends and family. Hit the like button, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye, guys. And that is the show we just signed off. I'm jumping back in here because I really want to let all of you know that you need to watch the video that comes after the sign off. It is a really good representation of how you can see the map of the world in the face of the moon. We're going to get into greater detail on that next time. But after I sign off with you right now, stick around. Watch the video that I appended to the end of this show. It's just a few minutes long. It's worth every single second. If you have felt confused by this show, you won't feel confused after you watch the remaining few minutes. So stick around for that. Furthermore, those of you who are here, please hit that thumbs up. Really appreciate it if you could do that. Share it with your friends. Follow me on Rumble. Follow me on X. On Rumble, I'm just P. Gunnels. If you're watching here on X, I'm P. Gunnels1. Check it out. And now, to finish up the show, don't forget tulipblooms.shop, an extra 15% off of the amazing bakuchiol infused satin balm, wrinkle smoothing balm from tulipblooms.shop. Extra 10% if you use promo code Shapiro, promo code Rambo, promo code Channel 17. So check that out as well. Thanks everybody for watching. Enjoy this video.